Hello. This is the second part of the emotional intelligence model and how we can leverage that to get more results than is typical through the normal reading of emotional intelligence in the general literature. We talked a lot about it, and there are two essential parts, aren't there? There's the sort of self-awareness to self-managing. It's about ourselves, and generated a lot of that by feedback, whether it's feedback on a ad hoc basis, just around the place and having conversations and stuff, or it's a formal basis through questionnaires or a 360, for example, about that, a structured approach to it. Then the second part is about others and us understanding others better so we can motivate them and not demotivate them by understanding a lot more about them, asking them questions. And that's really what this session is about. It's about questions and how can we leverage those questions, what sort of questions do we ask, in order to provide these compelling, forward-moving advances in our emotional intelligence so that we know more about ourselves, we get more inquisitive about others, and then we learn more how to leverage others to influence and impact others to actions that are going to support us and the team as we go forward. So let's look firstly at the self. That's that self-awareness to self-managing. And to do that, we want choices, we want feedback. And as I said, that feedback could be 360, a formalized methodology. It could be a more ad hoc basis, around a coffee machine or something, or a Zoom. And in those cases, how can we leverage those ad hoc conversations? One of the great ways of doing this is to ask a question which is actually formatted around the way our brains work. It's using the neural networks of our brain, the patterns that we generate within our minds, in order to leverage those and get better answers to the questions we're asking. We can ask for specific questions, and we should. That means asking a question that gives the context of a situation. Let's say it was a meeting. Something you noticed wasn't quite right. Perhaps the person in the meeting really wasn't contributing, so you want to know about that. So the question then would be, oh, by the way, when we were in that meeting, and let's say Jennifer seemed not to be generating ideas or contributing after my discussion about X, if there was one thing I could have done better, what is that one thing? So the one thing is important because if you ask for 2 or 3 top things, they're probably not going to get all of those, and it creates more stress. Or they're going to, if you ask a generalized question, they're going to say, no, you were fine, it was all great, she's just having an off day. But asking one thing makes it a lot simpler for that individual, and we're using that expression, if there was one thing that I could have done better, what is that one thing? What happens neurologically is that when we make a suggestion, like if there was one thing, that lands in here somewhere. And it's probably involved 25, 30, 35,000 neurons connected on a pathway to that spot. It's asked the brain for something, and the brain is probably already working on it, whether you're conscious about it or not. And so when you say to them, if there was one thing that I could have done better, and what is that one thing? The one thing is the same phrase that goes to the same little spot, and the instinct is for the individual to answer that. That enables us to get a piece of feedback which is very specific to the context that we've described. It's not stressful because it's only one thing, but, and here's the catch, having got one thing, of course, you can then ask a subsequent question. That's interesting, thank you so much. I wonder if there's another thing, and if there was another thing, what would that be? So you're really generating from one question then the security of asking another, and of course you're beginning to change the culture around you to the point that one day some of those colleagues are going to say to you, oh, by the way, Angus, etc., 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 and use the same gambit on you. So that's the first bit. That's about our self-awareness and understanding more about it, getting feedback from others, maybe so we can change our behaviours a bit to enhance the motivation, demotivation of others by changing ourselves and the way that we behave. So there's lots and lots of learning and advantage and leveraging in us, amongst others, just from that first piece. Now the second part of this is about others. And in this case, we're wanting to find out the values of others, the beliefs of others, the sense of identity of others, what motivates them, what demotivates them. Now those, of course, may generate some awkwardness in some people and some cultures, particularly if there are certain issues that people are not naturally likely to talk about in that geographic culture or in a work culture, in which case we may tackle this with a little bit more sensitivity and gentleness in the form of the questions. But certainly in the West we can ask questions like, I noticed you had a lot of success with a particular business and the interaction you had and through that success. So if there was one thing that really made that engagement and that result possible, what would that one thing be? Again, we're using this same neurological design of question. If there was one thing, what would that thing be? For example, as a phrase, in order to get that one thing, open the door to a series of questions which enables us to learn more about them, their vision, their motivation, and importantly their demotivation, and what really kicks them off, what really gets them motivated to get results. And knowing that, we again can change our behaviours with that person to get more leverage, to get more followership, and as a team, of course, to get better results for all of us. Thank you for listening.